Boom. What up? I'm Flagged. I'm a GM Riven one trick, pioneer of Eclipse Riven and Dustblade, and I'd say I know a thing or two about item building. There are a lot of changes in Season 14, so let's get right into it. But before I do that, I just want to remind you to subscribe. It only takes a second, and I would be forever grateful. Okay, back to the video. In case you didn't know, they removed mythic items. Gore Drinker and Dustblade are now gone. But so is Divine Sunderer, so thank god. Oh yeah, and Prolix is gone too. A new component called the Brutalizer is back, and I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't around when this was in the game, but for what I can tell, it seems pretty good. It builds on a pickaxe and it gives lethality and haste, so what's not to love? A lot of items got their ability haste cut, now there's a lot less ability haste in general. Most items that had 20 haste now have 15 haste, including Ionian boots. However, there is still one really good haste item that you should almost always build on Riven: Shojin. Shojin gives 20 haste and 15 haste to non-ult abilities, so basically it gives you 35 haste, not including your ultimate. It also has a new passive. You gain a stack every time you hit an enemy with an ability, and the more stacks you have, the more damage your abilities do. The build pass is also really good compared to the other items, and it's a pretty solid first item. Black Cleaver. Though still good, might not be a staple item anymore. The build pass consists of a phage instead of a hammer, which is kind of bad. It also went from 30 haste to only 15. Additionally, Black Cleaver counts as an anti-armor item, meaning you can't build Syreldas if you have Black Cleaver already. That means that you have to choose between the two. Speaking of Syreldas, Syreldas is now a lethality item, but now the armor pen went down. Instead of 30%, it goes from 22% and goes up 2% for every lethality item you have. Additionally, the slow only procs when the enemy is below half HP. Eclipse overall got a lot weaker, and is no longer the anti-tank / bruiser item it once was. Eclipse no longer is a lethality item, but it has more AD. The passive has also gotten nerfed, no longer doing % max HP damage, but damage based on your AD. It also lowered the shield amount, and it takes 3 attacks instead of 2 to proc. Even though Eclipse is heavily nerfed and harder to build because of pickaxe, it's a lot cheaper now, and the shield is still not that bad. Now, onto Hydra. Actually, Hydras, because there's a new lethality Hydra that was released. At first, I was excited for the new Hydra because it seemed like it would be pretty good on Riven. However, unless it gets buffed, I think the regular Hydra is better. For some reason, the new Hydra has a 65% AD ratio on its active, and it increases to 97.5% when the enemy is below 30% HP. But Ravenous has a 100% AD ratio on its active, so it does more damage. It also provides Riven with sustain, which Riven really likes. Unless changes are made to these items, Ravenous seems like the better choice. Side note, it seems like the blue Hydra has better wave clear, but it doesn't really matter for Riven because her wave clear is already good with the regular Hydra. For some reason, Chainsword has kept its stats, including the 25 haste it had. So, if it looks like you'll need heal cut in the future, or you're laning against a healing champ, finishing Chainsword is probably not a bad idea. Honestly, it might even be a good first item. Another item that didn't really change is Umbral. I always thought this item was pretty slept on, and actually pretty good, but there wasn't enough room for it last season. However, now that the power level of items went down and Umbral stayed the same, it could be really good. Umbral gives good stats for how cheap it is, and if you're behind, this is a really good item to go. If you're behind as Riven, you need to build offensive items so that you can be useful, because Riven's CC isn't very good, so in order to be useful, you need damage. So, if you're playing from behind, you are most likely going to play an assassin-like playstyle, playing around vision and picking off targets. That is why Umbral passive is very valuable. It lets you know you are in vision before you make your plays. Defensive items are good on Riven if you're ahead, because that means that you can already kill your opponent easily. So, if you make yourself harder to kill, you can stay alive to do more damage. So, if you're ahead, think about building Death's Dance and Maul, because together they are a good combination. The build path for Maul didn't change, but Death's Dance is a little bit different. Instead of pickaxe and chain vest, you build this new item which gives you 80 in armor. It doesn't really change much, but if anything, it's better. Hubris is like an AD Medrise. After you buy it, every kill you get will place a statue. Killing an enemy will grant you 10 AD plus 1 AD for every statue you have for 1 minute. Also, there is no penalty for dying. If you're ahead, it's not a bad item. The build pass is pretty good, and the stats are too. But if you're not ahead, you might want to build some other lethality items instead. Sundered Sky is kind of like old Stormrazor, if you remember that. The first auto on a champion will crit for 1.5 damage. It will also heal for a flat amount and the amount of HP you have missing. And it has a CD of 6 seconds per champ. Crit is actually really good on Riven because it works with your passive. I have high hopes for this item because I used to love old Stormrazor. I'd say the only downside is the build path, but honestly it's not even that bad. Voltaic Cyclosword, I'ma just call it Voltaic, is an assassin energized item. At 100 shards, your next auto will do 100 physical damage and slow for 0.75 seconds. Even though it says it stacks faster with stashes, you are still most likely only going to practice once per fight, and at most 2. I'd purchase this if there are a lot of ranged targets, or if you're building Sundered Sky. The Sundered Sky crit, plus the 100 flat damage from Voltaic, means that you are most likely going to kill any squishy in one combo. Last item options are pretty flexible. At this point, you have more than enough ability haste, so you can build items that don't have any. Besides the items I've already gone over, here are some good last item options. GA is good if you're ahead. Edge of Night is good for blocking important spells like Gold Card or Hook. Anathemas is okay if they have 4 damage of one type and 1 damage of the other, like 4 AD and 1 heavy AP, and vice versa. Just plop Anathemas on that champ and you're good to go. What if I want to sell boots? Well, to be honest, there aren't many very good options. Normally you'd want an item that would give you movement speed plus haste, but now there's no item like that, so you'll have to settle for only haste. Either you can build one of the items I talked about earlier, or you could try one of these fun options instead. These are not guaranteed to be good, but they might be pretty fun. If I didn't mention an item you were thinking of in this video, it's probably because that item doesn't have haste anymore. Here are some example builds I came up with. Just remember, when behind, build damage, and when ahead, build defense. Riven is most likely going to be an assassin in Season 14. Personally, I enjoy this playstyle a lot more than Bruiser, but what do you think? Do you prefer Assassin Riven or Bruiser Riven? Leave it down in the comments. So if you're looking at... Oops. So if it looks like you'll need heal... Fuck. Dude. Don't need... Fucking Flonase. Where is it?